Hey, you guys. So, welcome to class on today. So excited that you are here. You're learning, you're moving forward. Now, listen, I need you to ask questions along the way. That's why I put the comment section there in the course materials so that we can chit chat along the way. I can make sure if you need help, I'm able to answer your questions. If you need greater clarity on a subject or a topic, I'm here to answer that for you. So let's get started today. We want to talk about today how to purchase properties, right? How to go about purchasing investment properties, because there's so many different ways. There's multiple ways you can find real estate to purchase, right? And to invest in. And some of it is like we consider creative ways of doing it. And it's not necessarily the best way for everybody, right? Because again, we're going to go back to what your risk level and your tolerance level, what you're willing to do, how much money you have to invest, how much time you have to invest, and the different scenarios and topics that things it'll take for you to have the knowledge to be able to purchase in these ways, right? So the first way I want to talk about in purchasing a real estate investment property is by using a realtor, right? So when you work with a realtor, they're a member of the National Association of Realtors. That means they're licensed, they're vetted, and a realtor could be everyone's not a realtor, right? So everyone is either a real estate agent, depending on the state, or they're a real estate broker, depending on the state. I'm a real estate broker because North Carolina is a broker state, right? A state like California, they're sales agents. And then over time, when they have a specific amount of experience, they've worked under a broker, then they can become a full broker. So every state is different. Every state is unique. And so in this class, we're not going to speak specifics as it relates to state for how you state wise. And we're talking about real estate investing general basic knowledge. This is your foundation. There goes up from there, right? So ways that you can purchase real estate is by using a realtor. I recommend, if you're new to real estate and you're just starting out, that this is the approach that you take. Why? Because they're a member of the National Association of Realtors. They're going to have access to the multiple listing service, right? The multiple listing service is where all of our homes in Oregon, I believe, somewhere on the West Coast, and they're a marketing company, right? So as a marketing company, what they do is they pull from public records and they pull from public data. And so that's why sometimes you'll go in there and you're looking for properties, and all of a sudden you call or you want to know information about it, and it's a week old, a year old, 5 days old, right? It's not updated, accurate information because it's only pulling from public records, right? So if you go to realtor.com, we as realtors own that website. It updates every 15 minutes. It pulls directly from our private database, and you're getting updated information. Also, when you work with a good realtor, right? These are the questions that you want to ask. Do they have experience in working with real estate investors, right? Do they like working with real estate investors? Do they own investment properties? Have they ever purchased investment properties? That's important because you want to work with someone that has the knowledge, that has the experience. They've had good, bad, and indifferent experiences. And that way they're going to lead and guide you from their expertise and not just their know-how, right? Not just they took a real estate investing course and now they specialize in working with investors. But this person has been down dirty in the trenches, and they have gained and are gaining the same experiences that you have, so they can lead and guide you on the pitfalls and the things to avoid. Okay, so that's super important. As you're looking for a realtor, you want to interview them, right? You want to interview your realtor and ask them questions. Those are the questions that you want to ask, but you want to ask them also, are they full-time or part-time? Right? And why does that matter? Because if they're part-time, that means that they're not going to be working every day. They might not be working every hour, which nobody works every hour, but they may not be working a long enough length of time to work with you. And you've got to move fast when it comes to real estate investing, right? So you need someone that works full-time. This is their do or live job, right? This is how they feed their family. Every day they show up to go up, right? So you want to ask them, are you full-time or part-time? What areas do they serve? And what price points do they serve? Because like as a real estate broker, this is again my 14th year. You guys know that I don't work in every price point, and I don't specifically work with investors, right? Now, if the investor is looking to purchase a multifamily, a triplex, an apartment building, commercial, something like that, I'll work with them. But that investor that takes a weekend course and then they call me to vet me, right? With the 100 questions that they give them to ask the realtor, and then they want to put in offers on properties that don't make sense. I'm not going to do that. And I'll give you an example of why I no longer do that. Is because when I first got started in real estate, I had a real estate investor as a client. He was a nice guy and everything else, right? But he felt like he could write these offers that didn't make sense. Let's, for example, a house is listed at $80,000. Nothing wrong with it. Move-in ready condition. It's good to go. He wants to offer $40,000. It doesn't make sense, right? A house that's, and there's no $80,000 houses on the market now, right? But back then there were, right? Let's say the house was listed at $60,000, but it needed a lot of work. He wants to put in an offer for $20,000. It doesn't make sense, right? There's a formula that I'm going to teach you, and the formula doesn't have to make sense to the other person, but it should make good business sense. So I remember one day he came into my office. I'm telling you this for a reason, because you don't want to be that investor, right? Because no one's going to work with you. You're going to get a reputation, and then realtors will shy away from you. They'll tell other realtors, hey, if this guy calls you, right? Because we have a network, an internet network, an intra network where we all talk, right? And so what happened was he came to my office one day because I wasn't taking his calls anymore. I was like, hey, I'm super busy. I'm not going to be able to go out and preview these properties, look at these properties for you, but I can refer you to another realtor. So when he pops up by my office, he kind of has attitude, right? So I pull out, because we're required to save our every paper that anyone signs, every offer, every agency agreement, everything that someone signs with us, we have to keep it for, I think it's 3 to 7 years. I forget the exact time frame, but it's a long time, right? So I had all of these papers. I had all the contracts that we had ever done. Y'all, it was a stack this high. It was high, right? And so I tallied up how much money I had literally made for all the offers I had presented. And I think I had presented somewhere between 30 and 50 offers on his behalf that didn't make sense. And I had made $800. It didn't make sense, right? So as a real estate investor and you're working with a real estate broker, you want someone that's knowledgeable, that's going to tell you about the market. Of course, you want them to help guide you through the process of making your offers. Ultimately, it's your decision. And by law, we have to write what you tell us to write, right? Because a realtor is going to owe you these 4 things: loyalty, obedience, skill and diligence in writing a contract. Okay. So loyalty, obedience, accountability, and skill and diligence in writing your contract. So they have to be knowledgeable. They have to know what they're doing. They have to follow your lawful instructions. They have to be obedient to share or not share the information you tell them to share or not share. And they have to have skill. And they have to be diligent. They have to move quickly, right? So that's what a realtor owes you. That's why you want to work with one, right? So when you go to work with the realtor, you're also going to sign a buyer agency agreement, right? So what the buyer agency agreement does is it's an exclusive buyer agency agreement that says you're going to work with that broker exclusively. They're going to work with you exclusively, and you all have a relationship. So anytime you work with a broker and you're under a buyer agency agreement, it excludes you from going out shopping around and working with other brokers, right? So you want to be careful that when you do go under agency to work with someone, that you all like each other, you have a good relationship, that this is someone that you can really grow your investment business with, because you want to find someone you can work with long term, not just 1 or 2 transactions. So it's establishing a relationship. Right. So also when you go to sign an agency agreement, it could be a dual agency agreement. So what that means is that particular real estate broker has a house listed for sale and represents the seller. And then you are the buyer, you like them and you want them to represent you. So this agent is a dual agent. They represent the seller and the buyer in the exact same transaction. Some people don't like that. Some people do. I've been a dual agent tons of time, right? And the difference is when you're a dual agent, that means that I can't give any information to you that would affect the seller negatively. I can't give the seller any information that would affect you negatively. So basically, I'm just a paper pusher in a dual agency situation, right? I have to stay fair. I have to stay balanced, and I have to walk in the middle, right? Some people don't like that. Some people don't care, right? So you have to, again, it goes back to your risk tolerance. And the truth is, as a dual agent, you still owe the same responsibility: loyalty, obedience, accountability, and skill and diligence in negotiating a contract. And you cannot cause harm to either person, but why would you anyway? But what it does eliminate is the ability to negotiate on behalf of either party, right? So you just have to know that there's no negotiation that can take place on either party's behalf if there's a dual agency situation. Okay. So what is another way that you can purchase properties? So the other way that you can purchase properties is one, through a realtor, two, for sale by owner, right? A for sale by owner is someone that has elected to sell their property themselves and is like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need a realtor. I'm super smart all on my own, right? I don't need representation. And so that for sale by owner then is going to list their property out there. Hold on one second. Okay. It's going to list their property out there on the open market to sell it for themselves without representation of a realtor. You still should have a realtor. As a real estate investor, as a real estate buyer, you should have a realtor. Why? Because you need a buffer between you and that seller. You don't, especially if you're new, you don't know enough, right? You don't know if that's an experienced investor. You don't know if you're going to be taken advantage of. You don't know if later on in the transaction, they're going to bring a realtor in and now it's you by yourself with the two of them. It's like putting yourself in a shark tank, right? So you want to go into the tank with a shark. I'm a shark, right? You want to go into the tank with a shark as your representation, because they're going to be a buffer between you and the seller. They're going to be a negotiator between you and the seller, and they're going to be able to speak and negotiate on your behalf. That's what you want. That's exactly what you need. So for sale by owner also doesn't always know the proper documentation that they need to have people fill out, which is like a residential property disclosure, in our market, a mineral oil and gas rights disclosure. I'm gonna write myself a note because I'm going to tell you what those are. Okay. So you can purchase from a for sale by owner. Now, sometimes there's some really great deals to be had for sale by owner, because if they are representing themselves, normally the reason they're doing that is because they don't want to pay a realtor whatever the commissions are. So there are no set commissions in real estate, and the seller normally pays. Every market is different. Every place is different. Every state's different. Every country is different if you're buying outside the country. So how we work here, I'll just mention North Carolina, right? So how we work is customarily the seller pays the commission of the real estate broker, although we represent the buyer exclusively. So the buyer gets the benefit of representation, they get the benefit of exclusivity, and they get to work with us and they don't have to pay us. However, in the event the seller is unwilling to pay the commission, the buyer has to. Right? The buyer signs on the buyer agency agreement that they agree to pay in the event the seller doesn't. If there's a shortfall in the compensation that the seller won't make up, let's say that instead of paying 3%, the seller's only going to pay 2%. Your broker in North Carolina could say, well, listen, I'd love to represent you. I want to work with you, but the seller's only willing to pay me my 2%. Would you make up the 1% difference? Right? To make their minimum 3% that they want to make. Again, nothing's etched in stone, right? So that's something that you need to know. And that's why you want to have skin in the game. And that's why you want to ask your broker when you're interviewing them, who pays you? How do you get paid? Right? You don't wait and start working together and everybody's under relationship and everybody's all happy and joyful and you're in the honeymoon phase. And then bam, right in the kisser, you find out I got to pay this person $10,000. I'm making that number up, right? But let's just say on average, since we're talking dollars and we want it to make sense, let's say you're buying a $100,000 property and there's a 3% commission that the seller is unwilling to pay. That's $3,000, right? So that's how much you would pay your broker for their services in the event the seller won't pay. Let's say you're buying a $200,000 property, right? And it's a 3% commission and the seller won't pay. It's $6,000. Let's say you're buying a $500,000 property, right? Because you're in an area like California, some parts of Florida, you're in these places where the average sales price is $500,000 and the commission's 3%, 2%, whatever it is, and the seller won't pay it. The buyer's going to be asked to pay it, and that's $15,000, right? So that's how the broker gets paid. And a lot of times people will say, oh, it's not worth the money. Try representing yourself and losing $15,000. And then we'll ask that question again. Did you think it was value in there, right? There's value in having a buffer between you and another person in the largest purchase you may ever make, or in the largest purchases you'll be making. You want representation, okay? So another way that you can purchase a property is via assumption, right? So you can assume someone else's mortgage. What does that look like? If I'm going to assume someone else's mortgage, that means that they already own the property. Let's say 123 Main Street, right? 123 Main Street, the seller owns that property. They want to sell it, but they don't want to sell it on the open market. They're willing to let someone assume payment, right? They're willing to, or you have a friend that wants to sell and you want to buy it, and they're saying, okay, you can just assume my mortgage and take it over. The one caveat to that is if the bank finds out and the bank doesn't like that idea, the bank could call the sale, they could call the mortgage due on sale, right? What does that mean? That means that the minute that that owner agreed to let you assume their mortgage, the full amount of the mortgage becomes due, right? It's called a due on sale clause. Example, let's say that the home is $200,000, right? And the payment that the seller is making every month is $1,000. And you say, well, I'll pay the $1,000. You let me buy the home from you. I step into the position of making your payments. Everybody's happy. Yeah, everybody except for the bank because they don't know, right? So, so people do it all the time. And the bank normally doesn't care. I would say I've had people tell me, other investors, I've never done this personally because I think it's just too risky for the seller, right? I wouldn't want to do, I'm held accountable as a realtor if I do something to cause harm to another person financially. So if I assume their mortgage and then the bank calls their sale due on sale and their full balance of their mortgage is due, I've caused harm, right? So a lot of people have shared with me that the bank is never going to ask who's making the payment as long as they're receiving the money. That may be the case, but do you want to be that 1%? I don't, right? So the proper way to do an assumption is for you to get qualified on your own through your own bank, through your own lending institution for that $200,000.